Hello and welcome to
Absolute Game of
Nerd! We are your non-geek, non-nerd hosts, Salt and Pepper, and we have with us today Matt DiTullio, and we're going to have Rohan give him a proper introduction, but we're back from break, so go ahead, Rohan, let's take it from here.
We got a banger of a show to bring us back today. So first up, we have Matt DiTullio, who is the representative of both Simone Bianchi and Simone DeMeo, who are very prominent artists in the comic book and Marvel card space, all of that good stuff. We'll kind of dig into that. But just to give a little preface, I saw Matt or listened to Matt on a episode of the NSDC podcast with Sergio and Jesus and Elusive and those guys. And, we've known that they've been on the show, and it was one of the best interviews I have seen since coming back into the hobby. And so that prompted me to reach out to Matt and ask him to come on. So he's with us today. Matt, how's it going? How you doing?
Good, man. Thanks for the intro. I hope I can live up to a second great interview. But I love those guys on that podcast. They're great people. Known them for a long time, and I don't know. I love coming on and on podcasts talking original art, comics, Marvel cards, whatever it is. It's just this is the stuff I'm passionate about, so I enjoy it. So thank you guys for having me.
Yeah, and obviously, with your position representing the two artists, there's a lot of questions I have. But first, we always kind of start our interviews with the same question, which is, you represent these guys who are in the comic space. Therefore, I'm going to assume you have had a love of the hobby before representing them. So take us back to that origin where it all started.
Oof.
So is that like as a kid or later?
Great question. Yeah. So I'm just a collector of things. I've just collected things really most of my life. The first thing I can remember collecting like very vividly was Power Ranger action figures. Like that was something that I was super passionate about. I still love Power Rangers to this day.
What age was that at?
7 or 8.
Okay.
Yeah. I was to give you prep, like I was from the time I was like 7 to 13 or 14, I was the same Power Ranger, green or white Ranger every year for Halloween. I just got a different size costume and alternated every year. I just love the Power Rangers. So I started collecting those. Like I would have my mom buy me like the flip head action figures. You'd like hit the button and like the helmet would flip or like flip to their head. She like buy me two. So I had like one that I would keep in a box and then one that I would play with. So like I still have like the green and white Ranger original ones that like I kept.
I'm impressed you knew to get one to keep in the box. Like that was smart.
Well, because I just I got them more for like display purposes. Like I just had them like the poke hole that they would go on the shelf. I just put a thumbtack in and like put them on a board in my room. So then they just kind of stayed that way. But yeah, so then when first thing I seriously collected though, I would say was Pokemon cards and sneakers. Pokemon cards I collected. I had my original collection from when I was a kid. And then I was like, all right, I want to start collecting them, but I want to collect them in a graded form. So they're all like pristine. So that was the first time I'd ever got into anything graded. Even when I was younger, like I was probably 15 or 16, I got into like, PSA. That was my first introduction of something that was graded. Mm-hmm. And then through that, I was buying Pokemon cards here and there. I had the Pokemon first master set 1 to 151, all PSA 9 first edition. So that took me a long time to, get up to that point, because I had some of them from my original collection. I subbed and I would sell the 7s or 8s and buy the 9 or whatever it was. And while I was doing that, I was always reading comics. I just have like a love for comics. I've been reading comics since I was, I think 14 or 15. And as I was collecting those, I was like, maybe I should start buying other comic books, not the stuff that I just don't read. I was a reader.
What were you reading?
Oof, man. Only DC title I was reading was The Flash. That's the only DC title I read. But then Fantastic Four, Iron Man, Spider-Man, anything that had Dr. Doom in it. I read a lot of what was the name of the title there? It was a Captain America story written by with Steve Epting. I just read any story that was like starting from number 1, and I just read it until I felt like it was done with it or I wanted to keep reading because the story was good. Then I would buy like trade paperbacks, stuff like that. So, you know, eventually I got my Pokemon card collection and my comic book collection, and maybe like the interim between those was sneakers. I was buying and selling like a lot of Kobe Bryant, Air Jordans, stuff like that. And then I realized like I had a huge amount of stuff based in comic books, based in sneakers, and based in Pokemon cards. And the first like kind of like cut I made was to sell all my sneakers. So I sold all my sneakers and use that money to finish off my Pokemon card collection and to invest in some of my comic book collection.
Got it. And then so the Pokemon though you kept, but you're just not as into it anymore,
Nope.
right?
I don't have Pokemon cards or comics anymore. I sold them both.
Well, I know you sold your comics. I remember you had mentioned that. So I know JP you did, but like he used to have quite the collection of comics. I know like one of them, like FF5 was one of your books because that's you showed.
Oh yeah, I had AF15, 30, FF1, 50, FF5, 50, Tales of Suspense 39, 50, X-Men 1, 50. So I had all the major Silver Age keys, and then I had Fantastic Four 1 to Fantastic Four 112 CGC slabbed, and then from 112 to current raw in short boxes.
Nice. And then what was it that prompted the sale?
So for the Pokemon cards, it was to buy my house. So I sold my Pokemon card collection right after the Logic, Jake Paul, everybody buying the Charizard for just insane amounts of money. So I sold my entire collection. Then I used that to buy my home. Then I sold like my Yu-Gi-Oh card collection.
Well, can we always point out that's a pretty good investment from your childhood that turned into your home.
Yep.
And did you individually sell those, or did you put them on like Golden or?
Nope. I went to a local guy. Well, not a local guy. A guy was like 3 or 4 hours away that I had bought some of the cards from before. And he owned a comic book shop. It was also a Pokemon card shop. And basically, you'll hear a lot of any of my interviews or my things. I'm a big like proponent. You got to do your research. You got to know what the market is, what you're buying, study. Like buying willy-nilly is just not the way, in my opinion, even though it's easy and it's fun in some cases. So I had like a spreadsheet from the time of everything I paid for all the cards. So I knew what I was into all of them. And then I was raised in a very Italian family. My father's always looking out for me, trying to make sure I was living at home, wasn't paying rent. He made me save a certain amount of money a month, which I always did. But then like he would open up my mail and he would open up like an eBay package and it would be like a PSA 9, like Vaporeon Jungle Edition. And the invoice would say like $92. And he was like, what in the world are you spending $100 on this bullshit for? And, when I made the decision to move. So I drove out this guy, made the deal. I left quite a bit of money on the table so he could make some money as well. But I was buying PSA 9 Jungle stuff at conventions for like $50, $100. So it was just piecemealing it a little bit at a time. And I came back and I had a Pelican case. I gave him all the cards in a Pelican case and he gave me a cashier's check and some cash. So I ended up opening up the Pelican case and showing my dad, and he was like, you like a drug dealer? Like, what's the matter with you? And I was like, no, like all the stuff that you said was stupid for me to buy. I actually sold it and it's gone now. So that was a little bit tough to let go of those because I did it over such a long time, but the comics was definitely harder because the comics I like hunted for and I wanted everything in a certain grade. And I really like curated my collection. I really focused in on Fantastic Four, Silver Age keys. And then what I did with that is I sold that and I put an addition onto my home that I bought and I invested all the rest in original art. So that's really how I got my venture started in original art, was going through the comic books because eventually, I'm a businessman at heart. That's how I was raised. And if I saw these comic books just continuing to skyrocket, and I thought eventually maybe the bottom would fall out, which it still hasn't yet, which is amazing. And I'm all for, if you buy something for me and you can make money later, more power to you. You have, different buyers. Once it's yours, you can shred it, throw it out, sell it. It's yours. Things kept going up, but what I had into them versus, what I could get, I knew I could make some money. And I saw that the comics were going for so much. My next thought was like, well, what about the pages that actually make the comics? Like if the books are going like this, what about the pages and the covers that created them? Now, not like FF5 or FF7 or something like that, where they're just astronomical. But then I started, dipping in and buying some pages here and some modern cover art here. And I really used that money that I had left over from my comic sales to really ignite my original art buying. And those helped me buy a lot of the Marvel Masterpiece 2018s that I bought from Simone that I still have today, and some things like that. So that's
real quick, when you started investing in the OA, what year we talking about now?
About 2016, 2017. Yep.
Okay. And then I was gonna say it's very interesting to me to hear you say, like, well, the comics are valuable. How much is the art that these comic books are made of valuable? Which is funny because, you go back 50, 60 years and that was not the thought, right? No. I mean, like, they were throwing original art away. I mean, it was getting destroyed. Like, nobody cared. I mean,
artists were using it to, mop up spills in their homes.
Exactly, right. I mean, there's the famous story of the guy who found the cover of Giant Size X-Men 1 at a con in like 1988 or 84 or something like that. And it was $85. He's like, I was able to negotiate him down to $75 or something like that. And it's just like, it is insane how people just like, that part's irrelevant. Whereas, you obviously had the foresight to not think like that. And I think probably
not foresight. I was able to find out, like, I have GPA for books. Yeah. I was like, all right, I typed in, where can I buy original art? I found Comic Link, Heritage. I just started doing a ton of research on my favorite cover artists, what their pages sold for at auction, what their covers sold for. I developed, a spreadsheet of, what type of range I should be in for this artist, for this type of piece. And really, just before I bought anything, I was very regimented on what I was going to buy. And, like, in some cases, when original art really started popping off, some guys were trying to charge through the roof for what it was at the time, and you could negotiate them down. And, now let's go fast forward 10 years later, let's call it. And it's pretty much like, the price is whatever I say it is. If you don't want to buy it, that's okay, because this is the only one in the world. So exactly. It's definitely picked up. I think maybe in the last 25 years, I still got in pretty late compared to some of these other collectors that have been doing it for just, decades and decades. But I just kind of felt like, to me, there's the famous story when you mentioned the Giant Size X-Men. The one that gets me was Jack Kirby's mail carrier. So back then, Marvel used to send all the paper, like reams of paper, an 11 by 17 that he had to draw the pages on. And him and his wife used to use Jack's pencils to clean up spills. She didn't value his art in any way. And they always felt terrible for the mailman having to lug all the boxes of paper. So they would give him original pages, Fantastic Four, Tales of Suspense. And he thought they were amazing, so he kept them. And then when Jack passed away and he realized, what they were, and he had communicated with his family, they actually gave all of them back to a Marvel museum. And now that's how, like, some of the best examples of Jack Kirby pages were gifts to the mailman for carrying in reams of paper.
That's insane. Let me ask. Go ahead, JB.
Real quick, I was going to mention something about Jack Kirby. I was watching. I forget where I saw this at. I might have been watching YouTube, and it came on about Jack Kirby, and he was being interviewed on the local TV station somewhere in California, I believe. Was that where he's from, California?
I'm not sure, to be honest with you.
I think it looked like it was nice outside, looked like good weather and whatnot. So could have been summertime, but either way, it looked like LA was interviewing him, and he was drawing the reporter, and he basically drew her as a superhero. And this is back in the 80s. And I'm like, if she took that home, she had original art of herself that probably no one thought was worth anything, and hopefully she kept it, So I thought that was pretty neat. I'm like, geez, there's original art he just made for her right there.
Yep.
So Matt, I was going to ask, when you made this first investment into original art, you said it was your venture. So was it always intended that you were going to take this art to sell, or was this for your collection?
I mean, like I said earlier, I'm a businessman at heart, so a lot of the stuff that I buy is always for sale later or anything like that. But, there's definitely some pieces that are like in my personal collection that, I would say are for sale, but they're for sale for such an obscene number that nobody would ever buy them. So they're not really for sale.
They're the FU number.
Exactly.
Yeah. The F off number.
Somebody wants to pay me that, sure. But a lot of it started with the thought of, like, I would say it was more like 50-50. I have, if I buy something to sell, or if I buy something for my personal collection, then I also have to buy something where if I need to become liquid, because, there was a time where, like, I thought, for me, I'll never forget the first cover I bought. It was $2,000. And I was used to spending, like, $4 or $5 on like a CGC, Silver Age key. But I was like, ooh, $2,000 for like a cover. I'm not sure. Like, let me check my spreadsheets and all stuff. And like now looking back, I would have bought 10 of those covers at that price and never blinked twice. You know what I mean? So it's all hindsight, but I just wasn't at that level yet to understand, or didn't have enough, in my background of knowledge to really feel comfortable doing something like that. So it was a lot of like 1-for-1 type of deal where like I'd buy something for me and then I'd buy something where, okay, I like this, but if it comes down to it, I could sell this to buy something new. And a lot of my, I learned once from a very close collector friend of mine. He said, the best rule that I can give you is try to have the hobby fund the hobby. Mm-hmm. So like if, you don't want to be digging into your personal money to build your comic book collection or put yourself into debt to do that. So if you can, buy a couple things and then sell something to help you upgrade or to do whatever it was, so I always tried to keep that in mind, where it was like, knew my limit, try to stay within it. And I had certain things where I knew I could move those if I ever wanted to become more liquid, to upgrade to a bigger piece. So it was kind of just trial and error at the beginning. I don't think I ever intended it to be where I am now, but super thankful that it led me down this path. And I don't think maybe I'll collect something new in the future, but I think I'll always, for the rest of my life, collect original art. It's just what I really enjoy. And I'm not talented at all when it comes to being artistic. So watching these guys that can create something from nothing and just like blow your mind is just super impressive to me. And like, now working with both of the artists and seeing like the sweat equity that other people don't get to see, of like hours and hours and hours at the drawing table or the painting table, or Simone DeMeo on his Cintiq, like doing digital layouts like over and over again to find the exact composition they want. And then like when you get the final product in your hands and you can remember how much time, effort, and like a portion of their life that they put into it, it's just something that I think is like really impressive. So I don't think I'll ever be swayed away from not collecting original art. Even if the market fell out and it wasn't worth anything, I'd still keep buying it because I just think it's a feat of artistic ability to me.
Yeah, totally. So prior to representing either Simone, did you have a full-fledged art selling business going then?
Nope, just my personal collection.
Okay.
Yep. But when I started working with Simone and to Bianchi, and to develop the inventory to get something like that off the ground, I took a lot of my, I would say maybe like 30 or 40% of my personal collection and sold it and brought cash back in, and or put them up for sale and used that cash to buy new pieces. And before I launched the website, I probably accumulated like 150 to 200 pieces of original art over a year to 18 months to make sure that I launched the website with, a nice amount of original art. So I kind of used my personal collection cash to buy different pieces that I thought would sell, and buying something and sitting on it for a year, movie announcement, speculation, all that type of stuff. So I tried to, always keep an eye on what's on the horizon, popular artists, popular titles, popular characters. And I've just built like a kind of like a cache of original art that I just had at the house, and was slowly scanning everything. And I would just title it like website update 1, website update 2, and just keep scanning and putting into the back end of the website until I felt comfortable enough where there was a good enough variety. And then I really, went in on it and just kind of took a leap and went from there.
Yeah. And then can you say something, JP?
No, that's interesting. That's all.
Yeah. How did you get connected to both of the artists that you now represent?
So Simone Bianchi, just an absolute massive fan, loved his work, got to meet him, 2017 New York Comic Con, or 2018 New York Comic Con, whichever year it was. And after that, I just couldn't stop it. And I picked up some original art from him at the convention. I had been messaging his rep, Gloria, who's still his main rep. She does everything in Italy and Europe, and then I just handle the United States. Gloria's, one of the best. She speaks like 5 or 6 languages. I've learned an immense amount from her of, how to deal with customers and how the original art team works. So I had a very good, background of being able to work with her. She taught me a lot as far as not just the American way of business, but the comic way of business, because it is different. And when I went up to meet them as a fan to pick up the art, Gloria was like, "Are you Matt DiTullio?" I was like, "Yeah." She's like, "Oh, I just expected you to be older. You look so young." I'm like, "Well, yeah, but I just am such a big fan of Simone's art. I saved up for a long time." picked up a couple pieces. And after that, one of a close friend of mine that I'm still very close with today, and he helped me get here, is my buddy Otis, and he's my tattoo artist. And he introduced me to Simone Bianchi, his artwork. And after he left New York Comic Con, he was working on my Winter Soldier arm. And I just kept saying, like, man, like, I just don't think Simone's art is out there enough. There's just, not enough exposure. Like, his line's huge. People want more of his stuff here. He should be more present. Like, he needs an ability, or he needs, a voice here that can tell people where to get the art or where new art is, or, he could be, such a juggernaut here. He just doesn't have that voice here, or that, his art at conventions as much as he needs to, because he focuses so much stuff in Italy. And finally, after 6 or 8 months of me just talking about it and saying that I could do it, finally Otis was like, hey, I don't want to hear about it anymore. Either do it and chase your dreams, or stop talking about it, because you've been talking about it for so long. So literally made a business plan, messaged Gloria, set up a time for a meeting, pitched it to them, told them that I was so passionate about it that I guaranteed results, that they didn't have to pay me unless I hit X amount of dollars or generated X amount. And credit to Simone and Gloria for wanting to, take a leap and seeing, liking what they saw. And we did a breakfast followed by a dinner, followed by some VIP stuff. And it all just kind of went off from there. And as soon as that New York Comic Con ended, Simone was like, you're in, let's form a partnership and let's work together. So it was really cool.
Let me ask you this. So both JP and I didn't get back into the hobby until 2022. So, we have obviously have knowledge from when we collected as kids of Jim Lee and Todd McFarlane and Kirby before him and some of those other artists, right? So I didn't learn of Simone Bianchi until 2022-ish.
Mm-hmm.
Was prior to you coming on and helping kind of expose him more on the US side, was he a fairly large artist on the European side?
Oh yeah. He's doing their version of Tonight Show, Jimmy Fallon, live on TV. He's going and speaking at schools, guest judging at art competitions, cutting the ribbons at museums, and that when I got to Italy and I got to see that, I knew that there was, and I got to see Simone's personality. If you ever listen to him talk, or you get to hang out, he's a gem. He's one of a kind. And I was like, this guy's ripe to just explode, especially with piggybacking off of Marvel Masterpiece 2018. That was still just such a kind of a groundbreaking set. It was so much different than some of the other sets that had come, than its predecessors. And it was really great. And now I feel like that name's growing here in the United States and becoming much more of a, a household name.
So for those that may not know, so Simone Bianchi was the artist that did the 2018 Marvel Masterpieces. In terms of the timeline, was your kind of beginning with him before or after that?
After.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
Got it. No, that's kind of great entrepreneurial story getting on with him. That's great.
That kind of boosted him into the limelight a little bit in the United States and doing more interviews with Upper Deck and stuff. And I always say this, Simone Bianchi was born to be a painter. He wasn't born to be anything else. He was born to do one thing. He started painting when he was 3 years old. He didn't know anything about Marvel Masterpieces, nothing about Upper Deck, nothing about groups or how the cards worked or how collectible they were. So originally I was kind of their liaison to the Marvel card group. So how to work with the uncut sheets, signing sessions, that kind of stuff. And they really liked my organization, the way I represented Gloria and Simone's work and how much they put into everything. And then it kind of went from, okay, well, you've done this. Well, here's some Marvel Masterpiece preliminaries and things, try to sell these. And it just kind of went, grew a little bit from there to the point where I was able to then start, kind of pitching my own ideas of doing the VIP breakfasts and doing things like that. So originally it was more me helping them understand different parallels and inserts and, things within a card set and, how they were valuable, because Simone also had boxes and uncut sheets and things that were sent to him for doing the set. So they didn't really know any of that, because that, unfortunately, Upper Deck really didn't explain anything like that. It was just oh, the set's done. Here's the stuff. And that's it. They didn't really tell him like what characters were tier 4 or tier 1 or whatever it was. So it was all kind of like a surprise. So it kind of started there and just grew from that point.
Got it. And then how did you then with Simone DeMeo?
So Simone DeMeo, I got to watch at Toronto Comic-Con, Toronto Fan Expo. I commissioned him to do something for me because I loved his artwork, and I started watching him and doing his sponging technique, and I literally was like, I never seen anybody do this. This is the main reason why I'm commissioning you. Do you mind if I like come back and sit down behind the table, because I really just want to like understand what you're doing? She's like, yeah, sure. So we talked for like an hour or so, and one thing I love about Simone DeMeo is he always, very much like Bianchi, always going to do his best, always going to put his heart and soul into it, but also always trying to get better. And sometimes to get better, you have to become bad at something to then work your way up and get better. And I was going to Florence to, let's call it videotape and market a live painting event Simone was doing. He was teaching a painting class in Florence in another Italian painter, Lucio Perillo's studio. And people paid money, came in to learn from Simone. They all got to paint their own different characters, but Simone walked them through how to change things or what it was. And Simone DeMeo actually came to the painting class because he wanted to learn from Simone Bianchi about trying to learn how to paint and maybe take that next step. And while we were there, we just kind of talked, and finally I just said to him, like, hey man, like, do you want to work? You want to like work together? I just really love your stuff. I believe in what you do. And like, I can, kind of show you what I've done for Simone on the American side and some of the ideas and maybe some of the revenue that we've generated and, new ideas and things. And we just kind of went back and forth and were able to make the deal, which I was very thankful for.
Awesome. Can you take a quick minute and then kind of tell people, what are both of these guys, like, what are they working on today?
So, can't go into too much of it because a lot of
for sure. Yeah, there's stuff things
like that. But so currently Simone Bianchi, he does cover paintings for Marvel, DC, Image. He's not on any type of exclusives. He does the work as it comes to him. He's doing band posters. He's done band posters for bands like Tool, Smashing Pumpkins.
Yeah, I've seen his Tool. I love Tool's one of my favorite bands.
Things like that. And also Simone Bianchi's very big into exhibitions, loves renting out, not renting out, but having a fine historical building come to him saying, we do exhibits here of, fine art. Simone is really like a Renaissance painter mixed with, a comic book painter.
Yeah, that's how I'm a big Renaissance fan. And I would say that's exactly how I would describe it.
And so he does working on a lot of scheduling of exhibitions, getting his pieces there. Gloria does an amazing job setting everything up for viewing experience. So a lot of that for Simone Bianchi. Simone DeMeo right now is under a DC exclusive. So he's currently the artist for Batman and Robin. He did all the interiors for Batman and Robin and did, or not all the interiors, up to like issue 10. Does the covers, and he also is the cover artist for Brave and the Bold, for Batman Brave and the Bold, and he did covers from 1 to 20. 20 just finished, actually. That's his bookend for his last cover there. And then Simone DeMeo's DC exclusive is up at the end of October. So not sure resigning, going to a different company, what options are open is, remains to be seen. He's definitely going to be talking, to, anybody that's interested, and whether it's going to be, continue to working at DC and doing Batman stuff or going somewhere else, that'll be up to him and, what way he decides to go on.
And I just want to add, I know you said he's in a DC exclusive, but he just posted, for those that have, if you haven't checked out Simone DeMeo or Bianchi, by all means, look him up on Instagram. And I'll put those kind of links in the
Galactus.
But and so my favorite character is Silver Surfer, and he just posted this commission he did of Galactus and Silver Surfer. And I'm not saying this because you're like, it is one of the coolest Surfer Galactus pieces I've ever seen. I absolutely
He drew that at my house. He drew that here.
I absolutely loved it. So props to him for that.
It's incredible.
Yeah. I wanted to ask you to kind of swing it back a little bit towards your side of the story. When it comes to representing these two artists, what does the day-to-day look like in that business for you? Like, what are you doing exactly?
It's a good question. So,
and you don't need to divulge anything that's like current or under. Yeah.
A lot of it. So first thing, going back to doing the research, a lot of it in the beginning is nothing, at least for me. And by the way, I only have 2 artists. There's some companies out there that have 50 artists or 20 artists. That's their business model and that works for them. And there's a lot of them out there that are very successful. My model's a little bit different. I don't ever want to go probably above 5 artists, 6 at the most, because I was on the other side of the table for a long time as a collector. And I always want to make sure I'm delivering for the collector. When you have 20 people, 40 people, 50, there's no way you can know each artist and how they work and what their time frame is and what their techniques are and where they got the inspiration. So, for example, I kind of have a rule when I bring an artist on, I work with them for 1 full year before I bring another artist on. That way, I'm able to set the expectations of what I expect from them, but most importantly, what they expect from me. I can understand how long does it take them to do a cover. From the time that they get an email to the time that it's done, what's their time frame looking like? What's their technique? How often do they work? How many hours per day? When they send me something, what's the turnaround that they're looking for to get it sold? Is this like an urgent sale where they want everything moved as fast as possible? Are they okay with, remaining firm on the price, keeping it there? So a lot of that in the first year, and, like with Simone, DeMeo, and I will be coming up on a year at the end of this year. And, we work with each other flawlessly now. He knows exactly how I think. I know exactly how he thinks. I know his techniques. I know how he started. I know how he got here. I know what his tools are. So I always want to feel, comfortable when somebody comes up to me and says, well, how much is this cover? And I say it's $6,000. And they're like, $6,000. I'm like, yeah. And they say, why? It's not because, well, that's the price. I need to be able to justify to them how many hours he put into this, how many hours he put in just to the layout, just for the composition, to find the Easter eggs that are hidden in the story of where he wanted to put them, where he decides he's going to do heavy or light line work, where he's going to do the sponging technique, where he chooses to do the heavier tonal placements for the inks or the Copic markers to show the light source. So for me, it's really about being able to break down that process and explain to a client of why this piece is where it is, or what it became, or how it got there. So for me in the beginning, it's a lot working with them on that. And then us getting into a flow of like, okay, the price range for pages is this, the price range for covers is this. Do you prefer for me to sell them as I get them? Or do you want to do like an art drop where we drop 20 pieces at once and you have a bigger chunk coming in? So a lot of it is the prep work for me. That's my end. A lot of it is the high end scanning, making sure you have everything crystal clear. It's the prep work. And then the selling part is either hitting the button for it to go live or going on a show and being able to explain it. And then really a lot of it is the process that takes the longest is scanning it all in. So I have a record of it and getting it on the site or packing it up, because, when somebody buys a really expensive piece of art, I've gotten some things in the past that are just in like a bubble envelope or something like that. I personally cut all the masonite boards. I personally put all the pieces in the bags. I personally pack every single package. I drop it off at the post office. So a lot of it for me is the sales stuff's fun, and it's great to see, money coming in, because I know that's money for the artist and they're happy because that's their career and this is their livelihood. But the real work starts after it's sold and getting it all packed up and cutting all the boards and making sure it arrives safely.
Yeah. Question. Can I just, since you brought that up, for us who have literally no knowledge of this world, what is each of these artists like? How long does a cover take? Like I couldn't tell you.
It's very different. So I'm very lucky because I represent 2 amazing artists, but they're both very different. So Simone is a classical painter. For something like a big cover. So like, I don't know if you just saw the Spider-Man Dr. Doom cover he just posted. Mm-hmm. So it's an amazing painting. It's 18 by 24. So it's basically like a poster. Simone paints huge. Something like that. He'll start off with a thumbnail, start off with an 8.5 by 11 piece of paper, some pencil sketches, some different, body parts, motion, poses, how he wants that. They're just kind of like doodles. You can barely see what's there, but in his mind, he knows exactly what that looks like. Then the next step for him is to take like an 11 by 17 Strathmore board, and he's going to do pencils, inks, and paint washes for the preliminary. So he's going to get the composition down, the pose down. He's going to start painting it, and then he's going to stop and say, like, this is exactly where I want it. And in his head, it's crazy. He can see it done.
That's awesome.
At the preliminary level, halfway done, halfway, Simone's prelims are just as detailed as some people's covers. He's like, that's it. Now I'm going to paint it. And then he puts it on an 18 by 24 board and he paints it. So for Simone, because of the process, I don't know, 4 or 5, 3 or 4 days. Now, if he's just sitting down and just cranking out a cover, he's not doing anything else, he can do it in a day. But, prefers to have more time because Simone Bianchi always says it's never done. Hey, bud. It's never done. He would prefer to have things back and touch them up even after they're published because he always has an eye of, I could have done this better or this different. Like, for example, like here's I have one next to me. Here's like a preliminary cover. So this is for Spider-Man 2099 #1 top. Yeah, Spider-Man 2099 cover pencil. So this is pencils, inks, and paint washes. So here he sees the whole painting done. He stops, and then he starts with a completely fresh board and adds all the vibrant colors. So like to him, this blue means a different color. This gray means it's going to be red, and he sees that all done. So he'll do it all in washes. All that background, everything all done. And now he's like, okay, now I can paint it. And then he just starts over and completely paints it. So pretty amazing. Somebody like DeMeo, much more new school, does a lot of digital layouts, a lot of things on the Cintiq, a lot of things on his pet, which is great because I think there's a spot for digital. I know that's like a soft or like a tough, thing on the original art world right now, like is digital artwork, all that stuff. For me, digital has its place. It helps with speed just drastically. There's no other way around it. So DeMeo, to do a cover, he could do, he does 4 covers. He does 4 covers a month for DC, 3 covers a week for DC at some point. So he can do a cover in, 1-2 days pretty regularly. So he'll do digital pencils, get everything all done on the Cintiq. Then he'll do the traditional pencils and then ink over top of it. Or in some cases, if he's in a time crunch, he'll print the digital pencils on the cover and then literally ink everything by hand from scratch. So it just has the blue digital pencils, on there. And then he goes through and puts down, it just is like almost like a negative space print. And then he fills everything in with all the inks and, all the lines and changes. It's backbreaking work either way for him, especially with the sponging technique. He doesn't use an airbrush. So a lot of people think his work is all airbrushed. Any of that gradient effect you see is literally him taking live ink on like a sponge you would see from like a Michaels that has like a wooden dowel in it that you would give to like a kid to finger paint.
Yeah.
There are different porosities. He will take Post-it notes, block off the part that he doesn't want to have any ink, and then literally dab the sponge, starting with a smaller porosity to a bigger porosity or a bigger porosity to a smaller porosity to give that gradient effect. So it's a crazy technique. It's something he found from an Italian artist that was doing it like 50, 60 years ago. He found in a book and kind of just brought it back. And it's been like a signature of his work that definitely makes his stuff stand out.
Does all the artwork that they create, are they keeping it themselves, or is there some that they have to send off to Marvel or whatever?
No, they sell it. A lot of them, I think Simone Bianchi throughout his whole career has maybe 10 pieces he's kept. Simone, once it's done, sells it.
No, I meant like they sell them themselves or through you, not like they go to Marvel, like all his original work has to go to, okay.
No. Unless it's like for a variant for like a store and the store has in the agreement they want to buy it at the end. So what happens is the artist gets their cover rate from DC or Marvel. They get paid to do the cover and then they sell the original art on top of it, or they choose to keep it. So like, I think DeMeo has like, one cover from his run on Batman and Robin, one cover on his run from Brave and the Bold. And like, he kept one Punchline cover that he literally put, it's called Punchline, the Gotham game, but it's like Punchline with her hands looking down over like, like those things where you would like flatten out a piece of paper and it would like bring a message up. It's all newspapers, and he actually hand clipped newspapers and spelled out Punchline on the cover and then did all the art around the newspaper. And he was like, I just that was such a crazy cover for me to do and such a, crazy creative thing. Like, I just wanted to keep it because I'll probably never do it again. So he kept that as like a memento from something that he did. Yeah, but some artists are, I call them pack rats and hoarders. They keep all their covers. I know some artists that have covers from 15, 20 years ago. That's their thing.
Yeah, we JP and I met actually for the first time a few weeks ago. We went to Terrificon.
Oh, nice. In Connecticut? Cool.
Yeah, and it worked out that both the Saturday and Sunday we got to have breakfast with Walt Simonson.
Nice.
And
easy.
Yeah, and I asked him that question because I had heard about it. And he was like, "Yeah, no, I've kept all of my work, and most of it." And he's like, "Some of it will go to my daughter, and some of it will." He's like, his hope is like it goes into like a museum or something like that.
I'm pretty sure Walt still has the original design. Last time I heard, which I don't think much would change. I know they moved recently, so they were cleaning a lot of stuff. But he found, from what I understand, he has the original design for like Beta Ray Bill. Like, he has all of that, which is like awesome. You know what I mean? Like that's so cool.
Yeah. It was funny. He told us how he actually told us at break. He's like, "Yes, I did move, but I don't want to say." He ended up telling us, but he's like, I can't usually say because then I get flooded with this or people show up here. And he's like, I was like, no, man, I totally get it. You keep your privacy. I get that.
Yeah.
When it comes to Simone, I'm curious, with Gloria being his European rep, when Simone makes a piece, how do you guys decide if it goes, if you sell it in the US or if she sells it in Europe or?
It's a great question. It just happens how it happens. I don't really know, to be honest with you. It'll get done. It gets scanned over. Gloria sends it over to me. She's like, "Hey, this is available. I'm going to shop it around to my customers for like a week. If nobody gets back to me, you shop it around to your customers. And then if not, we put it up on the website." Then it kind of goes vice versa. At conventions, where we sell a lot of our original art, we work as a team. So I'll work with the American customers. She works with the European customers. So it's really like a team effort, but I have to be honest, it's mostly Gloria. She's awesome. I still have a lot to learn from her, but she is, she's a master at her craft. So I enjoy watching her work, and, it's never really like a competition because we're all pulling the rope in the same direction. The goal is to always sell original art for Simone, to keep the name growing, to keep his presence out in these conventions, to keep building new collectors of buying his artwork. I always say it's great to have, it's great to have superstar collectors that are buying multiple pieces. But for me, the best to do is I call them, like, you just start from small. You get them to buy a remark or a sketch. Then they go from a remark or a sketch to a preliminary, then from a preliminary to a commission, then from a commission to a preliminary cover, and then from a preliminary cover to a cover. And now you have multiple of those people all at different levels looking at Simone's art and trying to buy things, rather than I know some reps and some people, which is definitely not the way Gloria and I do it, but they just bring all of the stuff as soon as it comes to the number one collector. And just keep, you can only squeeze so much juice from one berry, you know what I mean? Yep. And if you're going to do it for the long term, which, God willing, I hope Simone paints for another, 30 years, you want to develop a vast customer base and a vast fan base rather than a really concentrated, high-end, small pocket. And I think that's, something that we've both always agreed upon, and Simone also, really pushes for. So we kind of just do it as a team, really.
Yeah, I mean, it kind of is no different than, like, you should diversify your investment portfolio, right? You want to diversify your customer base.
If that one collector comes out of favor for whatever reason, or has, loses money on something, then that's your
livelihood.
Yep.
Yeah.
One thing I want to mention real quick, or just ask on, is that I noticed recently Jim Lee had a piece that he was in the vault that Marvel brought back out. It's a Rogue cover, Rogue in Savage Land or something, and essentially he hasn't been at Marvel in 10 years or longer, right? So they brought it out of the archives and used it. So how would something like that work? They bought the piece. Do they have to pay any type of trails or something to that if they bought the piece? That's it?
Nope.
Okay.
Nope.
And that's a good.
You can. It's a 7-layered cake of shit, essentially. But at the end of it, I'm sorry, I don't know if we're not supposed to swear.
No, you're fine. You're fine.
they don't own the rights. These artists don't own the rights to the characters. So as long as they're painting Spider-Man, Rogue, Magneto, whatever, that image, once it's done and published, the original art is theirs to do what they want. Is they own that image. That image can be put on T-shirts. It can be put on movie posters. It can be put on anything. They will get no residual income because they don't own that character. Marvel or Disney does. So they get zero residual income. So for like example, I'm a good friend with Jeff Loeb. And Jeff Loeb, I actually was talking to him about maybe a creator was different. Red Hulk. He created Red Hulk. So Red Hulk's coming. He's like, no. He's like, I don't even know, like, I hope I get invited to the premiere. I'm like, but you created it. Like, how could you? He's like, it's just a different cog. Like, it's just, so that's why you see a lot of artists sometimes. And I think this is a good thing. Marvel and DC and Image and, they don't, but they'll do creator own stuff. They do a Kickstarter. They get a writer. They create their own characters, their own names, their own storylines. And it's that beautiful art that we love that we saw in Spider-Man or X-Men or Batman or whatever, just without those characters. And fans have really been receptive to that. Fans really like seeing that. And then that image, that character that they put on T-shirts, they get residuals for everything like that. So you're seeing a lot more artists starting to do stuff like that, which for me, I think is a great thing because sometimes these artists, they work for 5 or 6 years, 10 years, whatever. And then after that, they don't have any residual income coming in. So, the artists have throughout the years have become smarter and, diversified, and some save their covers and save, pages and send them to auctions or whatever it may be. But yeah, it's a very interesting thing how that works where like Jim, who's now the president of DC, and they can use like an Omega Red image of him that he drew 25 years ago and throw it on and become a cover. And that's just it.
Yeah, people were thinking Jim Lee came back to Marvel real quick to draw the stuff, and it's like, no, it's in the archive. So
yeah. And they don't even need to have the original art. They can just have the scan.
Yeah.
So like Marvel has like a database of tens, hundreds, 500s of thousands of Marvel images that artists sometimes too, like they'll have artists send in like, hey, send us in 3 images. 2 of them are going to be a cover and one of them's going to go into the archives, where if we have a deadline issue where the artist didn't make the cover or couldn't make it or something happened, somebody got sick. So they have like emergency ones where like that artist gets paid for doing that. They have no idea what it's going to be a cover for. They don't know if it's going to be used or whenever. And sometimes 5 years later, an image comes out and it's a cover and it was pulled from the vault because that painting or that drawing that they did fits in with that story and they can just plug that in. So they've really got it figured out, but it's great for the collector. It's great for the comic book reader to keep, the books coming and things moving. But at the end of the day, for the artist, there's some shortcomings there, but it's just how it works.
That's how it works. Yeah. And that kind of actually segues into my next one, but I was first going to say, I told you quickly, like I started that sketchbook and I would absolutely love to run into either, Bianchi or DeMeo at a con to start, like you said, something small and, go from there. My question though, was kind of going back to the business side of things when it comes to your role. Are you also like brokering the deals with Marvel and Upper Deck and things of that nature? Is that part of your responsibility?
In a few cases, yes, but normally no. Normally that's the job of like an agent. That's what
I was curious. I didn't know like if you kind of swayed into those waters or if that's something specifically different.
I have once or twice just for instances where I had more background on that issue than the Italian agent, because both of them have Italian agents. So for something like working with Marvel Masterpiece or Upper Deck, the card system and how it works and future things like that, I was able to work with Upper Deck and shed some light and set some things up for the gallery prints and things like that. And then Simone DeMeo, I've recently done it on a future project that's coming up. But more or less, I like to stay in my lane and I like to sell original art. Being an agent's tough, brokering contracts. I do that for my other job and it's tedious. So I like just looking at beautiful art and selling the art.
Yeah. Yeah. And speaking of beautiful art, I want to ask, is there a favorite character or characters that you have that each of them do?
Yeah. So my personal collection for me, taking out Bianchi and DeMeo, is number 1 is Black Bolt, the Inhuman King. Yep. Number 2, Scarlet Witch. She's one of more of my recent ones I've been doing in the past probably 3 years, but I didn't have a female character, and she's easily one of my favorite female Marvel characters. And I think the way it gives people a great way to play with her, to use the powers, or to do Wanda, or to do, Scarlet Witch or Dark Scarlet Witch. So Black Bolt, Scarlet Witch, Doctor Doom. He's just my favorite Marvel villain. I think he's just awesome. Death Dealer by Frank Frazetta. I love getting artists to do Death Dealer. Frazetta is one of my I think he's one of the most brilliant artists in the history of art, regardless if it's fine art or fantasy art, or, I just think was such a visionary. And then I have a small, 2 recent ones have been Predator and Namor. And so I'm a little bit scattered around, but those are the ones for me. DeMeo, obviously, his Batman is just absolutely insane. Marvel character, he does a really good Wolverine. He's doing a big Wolverine commission. I don't know if you saw, DeMeo does an option that's really crazy. It's a double A3, so it's 2 11 by 17 boards taped together, and it's either a horizontal image or it flops down like this. So it's just a massive commission. And he's doing one right now, Wolverine versus Omega Red, and it's really good. It's awesome. And then Bianchi is Doctor Doom and Black Bolt. Easily my 2 favorite characters that Simone does. Now, their favorite characters to do, DeMeo's Batman. He just loves Batman. He wants to draw Batman, and then he wants to draw. We were just at a convention, and we were doing well on commissions. We said for the show we were only going to take 6 headshots. We had sold 4 of them, and it was like Gambit, Green Lantern, Magneto, and Robin. And he loves drawing Damian. And I looked at him. I'm like, what's going on? He's like, just a little sad. Nobody wants Batman. I don't know. I feel like I want to draw Batman this show. Sure enough, the next 2 people that came up got Batman headshots, and he was happy. Bianchi is crazy. He loves painting Black Bolt, which we have an affinity for that. He loves it because he's a great version of Anatomy, because he's just a man in a suit. So it's a perfect way to really flex your muscles on knowing anatomy. But I've said this before, and it's bizarre. Simone Bianchi loves painting Cloak and Dagger. I have no idea why. I'm like, bro, if they're on the set, don't pick them, please. But like, who am I going to sell Cloak and Dagger? And he's like, doesn't matter. I love painting them. He loves the movement you can do with the cloak. He loves the colors from the dark purple to the white. You'll notice they were in Marvel Masterpiece. He did them on an Avengers set. He's done Cloak and Dagger covers. He loves painting Cloak and Dagger.
Well, let me ask you, have you had any issues selling them?
I've sold the 2 or 4 that I've had from, because we sell them together, but we've sold them. But man, I don't know. Like for me, there's not a lot of Black Bolt collectors out there, I guess, but we've found the Cloak and Dagger, clients, but also I think we're starting to get to a point, and I've said this before, and I really believe it. I think in maybe we're just on the cusp. Really, the auctions have been down a little bit lately, but I think that has a lot to do with, tax time, elections, just a lot of different stuff that's going on. But if you look at it as a whole, not just like this last couple months, I really believe in the last 10 years, we're on the cusp of comic book art starting to be considered fine art. It's going to start, I think, in the next 10 to 15 years, not fetching, the Jackson Pollock or the Picasso money. But I do think it's going to continue to rise. And I think now we're starting to see collectors from sports cards, from Magic the Gathering, from coming in comic book art in some cases is much less than what they've been paying for some of these things. So we're starting to get more bigger collectors coming in, and they're not just character collectors, they're art collectors. I think there's a difference between buying a piece of art because it's your favorite character, or buying a piece of art because like, this is just stunning. It's just one of the most beautiful images you've seen. And that's like, for example, it's how it started my Scarlet Witch collection. I bought a Scarlet Witch from Simone Bianchi, and it was all downhill from there. I was like, okay, let's build a room. I built a room for my fiance. She has a walk-in closet, and in that whole room is all Scarlet Witch paintings or drawings. And like, I just walked in and I saw this painting of the Scarlet Witch, and she looked like she could have walked out of the wall. It could have been Rogue. It could have been whatever. If the painting was like, I was going to buy it because it was just a stunning piece of art. So I think we're starting to get some people that are slowly evolving from character collectors or from Marvel collectors. You know, if they see a beautiful Batman piece, they're like, wow, this is just stunning. And I want it. And some of the prices at auctions over the last 10, 15 years, the percentage that they've gone up, if they keep trending that way, you know, like a Frazetta will go up and hit $1 million, no problem. I mean, they're going up easy these days for $1 million. They just saw one of the Death Dealers got put up for like 5 million, and it's just buy it now. But if it goes to auction, I could see it getting 4. I don't know if Spider-Man paintings will get there in 10 years, but 10, 15, 20 years from now, I think we're going to see the prices continuously rise. And regardless of the subject matter of it being a superhero, like Simone Bianchi could just be a painter. He just chose to paint superheroes. You know, Alex Maleev could paint watercolor, beautiful scenery and be a fine artist. He just chose to paint superheroes. Asad Ribic did a Louis Vuitton travel book based out of Hawaii. They flew him to Hawaii. They sent him all around. He took pictures. And when you bought this Louis bag, that was like a travel bag, you got the book that showed you all, it was like a Hawaiian themed, and it showed you all these images. Assad painted them all. Stunning by hand. And it's bizarre because his paintings for a Marvel painting go for like 8,000 to 10,000 covers. The Louis Vuitton travel paintings you can get for like $1,000, and they're beautiful, but it's because they're of nature, not of, you know,
what he's known for.
He's famous for. But the art is the same. The level of the quality's there. They just haven't caught up in value yet because it's a very niche thing. But I do think we're going to continuously see original art rise. And I know people get upset. It is what it is. But like, if you're Jim Lee and you want to charge $20,000 for a commission, charge whatever you want.
No, I know. Recently, like
whatever you want. Jim Lee
news,
he's
I know. Like that news came out recently where it's like Jim Lee's opened his commission list up for the first time, and it was like something like 32. And people were like, "He's like, this is ridiculous," blah blah blah. And it's just like, guys, like, this is kind of how. I mean, he's earned that right, and like, that's not mine. You know, that's not ours to judge. Like,
look at what Jim's stuff does at auction.
Yeah,
he doesn't need to do this. He knows there's fans out there that want original art and have it, or that don't have it and want it. And I look at it this way: say you ask Jim Lee to do a Batman cover quality commission, and it's $20,000. The odds of Jim doing a cover quality commission and being the commissioner or editor in chief of DC and not using that image for a Batman cover is slim to none. It's going to get used because Jim's not doing cover quality work anymore. He's barely even drawing at these things. So if he's going to sit down and somebody's going to pay him $20,000, he's going to go balls to the wall. He's going to do it amazing. And it becomes a cover. It could be a $40,000 piece. I mean, see what some of his Batman stuff's gone for. I always say you can go and buy a Honda Civic and they're great. My fiance's got one, amazing car, runs forever. Or you can go and buy a Ferrari. Ferrari's earned it. They've earned it on the track. They've earned it at they've earned it at every level. Nobody complains about a Ferrari because they're why are we complaining? Jim Lee's the Ferrari of, Alex Ross is the Ferrari of the art world.
No, and it goes a lot back to
that's what it is.
It goes a lot back to like what you were just saying, like, people would be like, "Oh, you spent how much on a comic book? Like, that's dumb. It's just pay." It's like
because they don't know.
People spend $400 million on a Da Vinci. At the end of the day, it's just a piece of canvas with paint on it, right? Like, but when you understand the context of what it is, then you understand why there's value there.
Yep.
So,
yeah, it's just I always say like the best, and I always encourage anybody. You can always ask price. Always, never feel hesitant to ask. How much is this? Why is it this expensive? Whatever it is. But like at the end of the day, this is my favorite thing about original art. If it's not for you, don't buy it.
Mm-hmm.
That's okay.
But no one gets insulted if they ask how much, right? Like,
I've never had anybody be upset at me for asking how much. And I've never gotten upset at anybody for asking how much. Where I think the discrepancy starts to happen is when somebody asks how much and I say it's $6,000 and they like scoff or laugh. And then the artist is sitting right there and they're like, who would ever pay for that? And like, that person's just an asshole that doesn't know anything. So you got to let those roll off your back. And it just is what it is. That person is here at this convention to buy Funko Pops and cushy pillows and stare at the anime girls. They're not here to buy original art. They wandered over here on accident, so they can keep on rolling.
Yeah, I mean, and that's not just exclusive to this realm, right? That's
no, of course not.
For example, like, so I do software sales for a living, and software sales is not cheap, right?
I'm in my family's business in the middle of a software change right now. It's not cheap. We went from something that was Quantel based, dude. We were using something that was active in like before I was born.
Yeah.
And now we're going cloud based, and like to get our company to change over. I'm like telling my family, I'm like, guys, we're gonna have to do this one time. And then that's going to be it. But you got to bear. We're going to have some hiccups. We're going to have things. But like we're trying to get something that can barely add to try to convert to something that can do trigonometry. That's the only way I can like explain it to them. And like we're trying our best, but it's a tough go. So like software sales, it's the same thing. You just don't know if you don't know.
Yeah. And it's like, I mean, like I've had like conversations with people where it's like, you know, the product that they're looking at could be $10,000. And like literally they're like, oh, I was budgeting $10 a month. And you're like, we're not. I'm sorry. Like
different planets.
Yeah, like this is not the same universe.
Yeah, but
right
again,
now.
it's what you know.
Yeah, you don't know.
No, exactly. That's my point. That's my point I'm making is like that knowledge spectrum is not just in the Marvel card art space or Marvel art space, right? It is in every space. People sometimes just don't know.
But it's not as much of an insult. Like if I'm next to the artist, that's insulting to scoff at them.
Agreed. Yeah. I wasn't trying to say mine was an insulting. Yes, I agree. When the artist is right there, that's a different story.
That's where it gets like, and I have to tell, especially like the Italian guys, because this is their life, this is their work, this is their passion. Like I'm like, you don't understand. Like this isn't OAX or Lake Como where it's like original art collectors that all understand what we're getting ourselves into here. Like these are just kids walking around. These are just guys, parents walking around. Like they don't know. So like, don't worry about it. We sell plenty of your covers. We sell plenty of pages. We have plenty of people that know the value of this. And they're like, but they didn't even ask any questions. They didn't want to understand why it was this expensive. They just thought it was like an absolute, like, I'm like, that you just got to let it roll off your back.
They wouldn't even know the question to ask.
They're just blown away at the number because they can't imagine spending that on a piece of paper. But maybe that guy would have no problem spending $6,000 on a new golf club set because he golfs all the time, where I would never do that. So it's to each their own. And I always say, like, for me, it's like, I'm never insulted by somebody asking me the price or somebody doing whatever. It's just when somebody tries to tell me that it's not worth that is when
you have an issue.
I have to go to work to keep the artist calm and to try to get them to understand. Or I just halfway through realize they're not going to understand. And I'm like, well, clearly this just isn't for you. Thank you for stopping. And you just keep it professional and, you know, keep moving. Sometimes you run into the guy that's like 6,000. I remember when I could buy a Bernie Wrightson for 500. I'm like, how many did you buy? They're like, well, I didn't. I'm like, well, that was your loss. You know what I mean?
Exactly. Like,
here's your chance right now.
Yeah, like I don't know what to say. Go back if we all had a time machine, right? You know what I mean? We'd all do better. But those days are gone. What you pay for software is, I mean, shit. Go to the grocery store and leave with 5 bags of groceries and think about what it cost. Dude, think about when we were kids. I just saw. This one like kind of blew me away. Actually, like hit me home. I remember the PlayStation 2 came out. It was $299, $300, and I remember thinking that was like an arm and a leg. My parents wouldn't support me on it because they didn't love me playing video games. They wanted me playing sports outside. Went to Walmart. You remember at Walmart they used to have the controller that was like linked into the wall, and you could look up to the screen and like play a demo game. I remember he rang it up. He told me it was like with tax $326, whatever. I went to work, saved up all my money, bought it. The PS6 just announced it starts off at $799, and that's like the discless one, and the disc one's $1,000. You can't have a kid go to work and save up $1,000 to buy PlayStation 6. And think about that's only been in 10 years, 15 years. Like it's everywhere. It's not just in original art, buddy. It's not just in comic books. Like, you know, or the one for me is like, well, when I was doing comics, it would be FF early, 7 or something. They're like, what's the price? I'd be like, oh, it's like 3,200 or 3,800. Well, it says it's 10 cents. I'm like, that's what it costs to come out, jackass. Like, don't do that. Don't do that. There's no way. But I'm not going to pay you that much. It says it's 10 cents. I'm like, funny.
Yeah.
Oh, got it.
Yeah. I'm curious now, Matt, as we kind of start away, I'm curious, what do you want to see for the future of your business? Like, where do you want to see this go?
That's a good question. For me, I'm a very big planner, but I also try to stay in the moment. I sometimes over plan. And one thing I've learned from the two Italian guys that they do much better than us is they stop and smell the roses. It's not working.
Culture there.
Yeah, it is. I've worked extremely hard to get where I am, and I deserve a day to be able to recharge my batteries, think about what I just did, reflect on it, feel good or bad, what could I have done better or went amazing or whatever it is, and just kind of unplug for a weekend. And then I can get back to it. And so I think for me, I'm actually trying to, because I'm like a 5-year ahead guy. I'd like to have maybe in the next 5 years, 1 or 2 more artists. Let's say 3 years, 1 or 2 more artists. Maybe get an employee that can help me.
Quick question. You don't need to reveal who, if there is, because I know that may be something that you're working on that you don't want to. Do you have your eye on someone's at all?
That's a good question. And the answer is yes and no. I've had artists approach me, and there were artists I would love to work with. But I have a very different opinion on this. Is my answer is just not yes to everyone, just because you're an amazing artist. This is where I think what the rep does gets lost in some cases. I actually just had a conversation with a comic book owner, Trinity Comics, Matt. He's an amazing guy, does some just insane variants with Eddie Granoff, EMGIS, Peach Momoko. And he asked me, he was like, so, do you ever feel the pressure of the original art thing? Because I asked him if he was ever going to sell original art, and he said no. And I said, the answer to the pressure question is yeah. But I'm also a big tennis fan. I played tennis collegiately in college. And there's a famous quote from Billie Jean King, which pressure is a privilege. Mm-hmm. I truly believe that. But like taking on somebody like Simone DeMeo, like if I'm not selling his artwork, that means he's not making any money on top of what he gets from DC contractually. That means he might not be able to pay his bills or to buy a new car or to move out of his apartment into a home or to do whatever he wants to do with his life. So I take that super serious. Like I want to deliver on every occasion that I can. Sometimes it doesn't work out and the artists are very understanding, but I personally feel bad about it. Like I want to do the best I can in each one. And if I just start taking on artists willy-nilly and I take on 3 of them, there's no way that I can, like I said earlier, understand their process, get to know them, be able to justify what their work is, understand what they're expecting of me and what I expect of them, and to be able to give their art that shine and that spotlight that it needs from moving from one part of representation to another. So we don't lose any of those collectors that we're buying from somewhere else, to make the transition as easy as possible, to make sure that clearly when you take on a new artist in the first 90 days, that artist needs to take a front seat to be welcomed onto the team. And that doesn't mean you can ignore the other guys. So you have to be able to balance it all. So for me, I do have artists that I would love to work with that I have my eye on, but I'm not taking on any artists until start of next year out of respect for what I do with Simone DeMeo, what I do with Simone Bianchi.
That's your 1 year mark then?
Yep. And there's a couple people that I would break that for, but they're, juggernauts and they're not going anywhere. If Bill Sienkiewicz called me, I'd break the rule, but he's very happy with Sal, and Sal's another one of my mentors. If you don't know Sal Abinanti, he reps 2 artists. He reps 2 of the best artists in the history of comics, Bill Sienkiewicz and Alex Ross. And he's just elevated the way art repping is done in the United States, and the way original art's looked at. So I'm personal friends with Sal, and I've learned a lot from him, and I also consider him a mentor. But I also think, sometimes when you take on 20, 30, 40, I don't want to be a signature guy. I don't want to just have people lining up to have signatures. I want to sell your original art. I want to take your hard-earned sweat, blood, sweat, and tears, your sweat equity, and I want to turn it into money for you, because there's no better feeling than knowing that your artist is happy and knowing that a client left with all their questions answered and a stunning piece of art that's going to go on the wall in their office or the wall at their home, or go into a portfolio that has all different types of, Batman work or whatever it is. And this piece from us fit them perfectly. And it was, meant to be. So, I love growth. I want to grow, but I want to do it in the right way. And I want to make sure that everybody on the team gets exactly what they need and they feel they're represented perfectly. And if I bring on 3 people and I'm trying to juggle 3 balls at once, eventually one of them is going to hit the ground. And that's not the goal. That's when they have to put loans on credit cards or do things because that's how they need this money coming in. So there is pressure, but it's a privilege to be able to do it. And I definitely will be expanding, but I just want to make sure it's done the right way.
Does whatever new artist that does potentially come on in the future, do they need to have the first name Simone to be a part of the DiTullio art collective?
There got to be Simone, Italian, something, no, it's just, to be honest with you, it just happened to work out that way. There was no planning, no nothing. But yeah, it is kind of funny.
That's part of the evaluation process. Like, I don't know about this guy.
Yeah,
name's Matt.
Italian or your name's Simone or both. And if you can do that, then you're in.
You mentioned the mentor for the guy that works with Ross.
Yeah, Sal.
Sal, is that something that I'm not sure his age and all that information, but he would sell that like a practice. So could you merge firms?
You want to know what? I never even thought of that. I'm not sure. I would be honored, but to be honest, Sal doesn't need any help. He's got some great people around him. He works with a guy named Chris Rupp, who owns Rupp's Comics, who also, works with Alex Rossart. He's built a great team around them. It would be something I would love to do maybe as like a crossover to do like at a convention where we would have like Bianchi and Ross, DeMeo, Sienkiewicz, all 4 of us at some type of booth. So I would maybe, want to do more of a partnership and a collaboration than some type of, an acquisition, because I don't think my business model and Sal's business model are the same. And I would never want to, disrupt anything that they have going or I have going. So I loved working with Sal. He's one of my favorite guys to work with. I buy a ton of art from him, whether it's from Bill or Alex. But as far as maybe, like selling a practice, like selling the repping company or something like that, I've never even heard of any of that. I'm maybe sure it could be coming in the future, but it's never something that's crossed my mind.
Yeah, I mean, there's got to be somebody who wants out and wants to retire if that's their main gig. So there's got to be some multiple on what they're earning to buy out, to say, if you want to buy these artists, where would they go if someone quits? Like, who takes over those artists? So
yeah, I just don't see that happening. I see normally what happens is, and this is just the fact of the matter, is the artist stops before the rep does. So, I don't see Sal ever stopping before Alex stops painting. You know what I mean? So, or before Bill stops working. So, they've built up just such an immense amount of trust, and he knows exactly what Bill and Alex are thinking, exactly what they're expecting. I think it would actually be very hard for Bill or Alex to work with anybody else but Sal from how they've done it. And when you have a name like that, at the end of the day, if Sal stopped or something, they could just send the stuff to Heritage and it would go insane. So, but what Sal's built at Alex Rossart, which also includes Bill Sienkiewicz, is just, I don't know if you've ever been to a convention where they're there. The booth is insane. He creates a gallery experience, carpet, walls, painting, couches. It's like wild. He's turned it into, like, if you're going to go in and spend 20 grand on a Ross, he's making it an experience for you. He's elevated it, and what Sal's done, in the original art community it's crazy. He's really a pioneer on the way he's done things. So I look up to him a lot. I'm a big fan of Sal's.
Awesome. Matt, this has been awesome. Great comeback episode for us. Oh, you say something, JP?
One thing I want to show off, when I was looking up.
Oh, I already saw it. I love that one.
So is this one of his works? Is that correct?
That is. So fun fact, that is Simone Bianchi's highest selling piece of original art at auction ever. It sold for $21,000.
Nice.
Yep.
Very nice.
Now he's had higher private sales, but that was the highest ever auction one. And I think that was like a KRS Comics variant, or it was like a store variant.
Yeah, it's some Dimension variant or something.
Dimension Comics variant.
Yeah, I had no idea. I was going through some log boxes at this. It wasn't an auction. It wasn't an antique store. Some like, like a retail store that sells music and Funkos and comics. And this guy was just talking to me, and we were just BSing about comics. He's like, "Oh, you want that one? That's the Dimension X variant." I'm like, "All right." It was like $1 or something. I'll take it.
Oh, that's a good deal.
And then I looked at online up the pictures, like I have that, I know where it's at, so I had to go grab it because I want to check it out. So
yeah. And then real quick before we wrap up, I actually, not planned, but I did get some original art in today. And if this is going to be live on YouTube, I can show a couple of things that came in if you guys.
Yeah, definitely.
So I got a package in from a collector that I was able to do a deal with. And this stuff will be up on my site. But, cool. We can do a little debut here. This is from New York Comic Con 2023, I believe. Yeah, this is let me get it out of here. This one's really cool. It's a little, her work has just been absolutely skyrocketing, but a little chibi style Vampirella by Peach Momoko.
Nice.
Really painted, so that's dope. I got 2 Adam Hughes, 1 Spider-Man.
Nice. I got an Adam Hughes Storm sketch at Terrificon.
Was it something like this one?
Yeah, it's very similar. I'll send you the picture of it.
Yeah, so I got a Magic, and I'm a huge fan of Adam's work. Adam's another guy that's just like a juggernaut, just does absolutely amazing stuff. And then the last piece in here is something that I'm really excited about. This is from Avengers. Let me make sure I get the number right. 503. And one of my personal favorite artists that isn't an artist that I rep is Olivier Coipel. Coipel is one of my favorite artists of all time. I think maybe not the best painter, probably Ross, Bianchi, Dell'Otto, Granoff, amazing. Maybe not the best inker, Joe Sinnott, or newer school Danny Mickey. Maybe not the best penciler, but for me, Olivier Coipel is top 5 in painting. He's top 5 in inking. He's top 5 in pencils. He's top 5 in wash. I love his stuff. So this is Avengers 503. It is Olivier Coipel pencils, Danny Mickey inks, and it is the Where Is My Children page. It's Agatha all along and the Scarlet Witch.
Nice.
And it's like this page that starts off WandaVision. And where you find, like they use it right from the movie, or right from the series. So really cool published page. Coipel pencils, but really great inking from Danny Mickey with the negative space, and then classic Coipel, facial down here with the Scarlet Witch facial drawing. So really cool. Just got these in today. Now I've got to scan them and get everything all set up, but I thought it'd be cool to just show a couple new pieces. I don't know. This one I might end up keeping. That's my problem, is that at heart, I'm still such a collector. And when I get stuff in that's somewhat in my wheelhouse, I'm like, I don't really need to sell this one, do I?
Yeah, totally. Matt, tell everyone where your website, all that contact.
Okay, DiTullioArtCollective.com is my website. DiTullio Art Collective on Instagram. A lot of my stuff is done on Instagram. I post a lot of commission opportunities, sketch card opportunities, for DeMeo and Bianchi, website art drops. Also, sometimes on Instagram, I'll do like a teaser and I'll post it on Instagram for like a day on my story, or a post for like, a couple days before it goes on the website at a discounted price. So I always try to keep Instagram interactive. But biggest thing is actually in 2 days, Friday the 13th, did it on purpose. I'm going to have a 75 to 100 piece original art drop on DiTullioArtCollective.com.
All right.
Paintings, covers, pages. So if you want to come and check it out, appreciate it. And thank you guys for having me, man. I really appreciate it. Hope I didn't just ramble for too long.
No, that was excellent. No, I appreciate your candidness with everything we asked. It was excellent. Yeah. Gave us a new insight into a side of the business that we know nothing about.
Yeah. And I think we all said it before, is, one thing I always like to end with is like, you don't know what you don't know. Mm-hmm. And do your research. There's ask a million questions. If anybody has any questions that listens to this episode and wants to reach out to me on Instagram about a piece or about a general topic, always feel free. Educate yourself the best you can. It's the best way to Marvel cards, comic books, whatever. People are scammers, burning people all the time. So do your research, understand what you're doing, try to go from a trusted source. And the last thing I always say is this is a hobby that's a very, small community, but it's a very big hobby. And there's room for all of us. You should be able to collect in any way that you want, any character that you want, any book that you want, CGC, Raw, PSA, Black Label, Beckett, whatever you want to do that brings you joy, don't let anybody else tell you that there's a specific way to collect or a specific way to do things. Do what makes you happy. Do what brings you joy. Collect the. I mean, I collect Black Bolt. Half people don't even know who that is. That's okay. It's no problem. I don't grade sketch cards. Some people say grading sketch cards bad. It's good. Do what you want to do. Collect the way you want to collect. And, you know, we all got into this at one point because it brought us joy. It made us smile. It brings us nostalgia, or it makes us happy. I love watching people do box breaks, seeing hits. Even though I don't get the card, I can just see them get happy.
Oh, yeah.
And like, it's an awesome thing. And I think sometimes in our hobby, there's a lot of like somebody posts something and they're like, yeah, that's nice, but look at mine.
Yeah.
And I just can't stand that. Like, I really think that you should be happy for each and every person, because if there weren't a lot of people in this hobby, the card sets wouldn't come out. The comics wouldn't be continue to be made.
Wouldn't be movies.
The original, yeah, there wouldn't be the movies. So like, there's space for all of us. And I really think that, you know, the podcasts like Absolute Game of Nerds, you know, the MMC podcast, all the others, they all have their spot, and they all are amazing because they shine lights on different things. I can always learn something from when I listen to, you know, an episode of your guys' podcast or a different podcast, because not everybody knows everything. And I love what you guys are doing. So keep on keeping on, you know, keep putting out the great content, and, you know, collect the way you want to collect.
And I want to say that if Simone Bianchi just wants to go exclusive Cloak and Dagger, if it makes him happy, you got to let him go. You got to let him go.
It's like Spider-Man, you know, that's nice. Wolverine, for sure. Love him. But like, do you think I could pay Cloak and Dagger? I'm like, no. But if you want like an A+ commission, and you ask for Cloak, and you'll get a S tier commission, because he just loves drawing them. So
yeah, you'll get the Sistine Chapel of Bianchi work if you pick Cloak and Dagger.
Yeah, yep. Thank you guys so much for having me on. I appreciate it. I'd love to come back on. Maybe even in the future, can, you know, next time can try to see if one of the Simones will be in town. We could do a little quick spot and ask them some questions. So yeah, just keep me in mind, and thanks for letting me be a guest on the channel.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
thank you so much. JP, you want to take us out?
I always say, believe in yourself.
Yes.
Peace out.
Yeah.
Peace out, guys.